UFC Fight Night. We have Thompson versus Neal. We're going to be giving you our main card predictions. Welcome to Boxing MMA Picks. We have Zan and Harris here giving you our picks for the UFC from specifically a betting perspective. Our goal is to, of course, make you some money, let you know which fights to be avoiding, and hopefully we all have a good time from there. So a pretty good main card, a pretty stacked main card, some really good fights on here for what seems to be UFC's final event for the year. We know that our main card is going to be Stephen Thompson versus Geoff Neal. But of course, we do have a number of fights to get to before we get to that fight. So let's get on to our first fight of our main card. We have Marcin Tybura versus Greg Hardy. I will say I had a hard time picking a winner for this one. I'm still very reluctant in my pick. I will say that. But if I'm going to break down both fighters, I'm going to say Tybura. I mean, pretty decent boxing, especially up close. Good movement for the division. He chooses to be a counterpuncher oftentimes, especially with that jab. Pretty effective with his leg kicks as well. I like that he has a good steady pace about him, so he's not, especially in a heavyweight fight, we often see both fighters kind of empty the clip in the first 90 seconds. He's not quite one of those fighters. He keeps a good steady pace about him. He's constantly scoring points, not really exerting a large amount of energy, so he can kind of keep the same pace going in the third round as well. I do like his striking defense. He stays pretty calm, going back to his pacing there. He does switch stance as well, so that's something to keep in mind. And, don't really forget that he has a ground game, even though he kind of prefers the game on the feet nowadays, but he very much has a ground game. When we're comparing him to Greg Hardy, of course, we have to think about how hard Greg Hardy hits, right? He has some decent MMA stand-up. I don't think he's better in terms of the stand-up, but the MMA stand-up is decent. Likes that low kick, especially with the lead leg. Likes to control the center of the octagon, so that's something that could, play a role in the eyes of the judges there. And one thing about him is that he always seems to be setting up that big right hand. And I know how I feel about fighters that are setting up one punch. I'm not a biggest fan of those types of fighters, but that is something that I'm going to be noticing in this fight as to whether or not Greg Hardy is specifically looking to do that. But that being said, he has a pretty decent jab. The jab is pretty long. He likes to throw straight punches, so he's not just looping to hit you with a power hook. And again, that's something to keep in mind as well. Also, a very important X factor here. We have seen Tybura get hurt a couple of times. We saw Augusto Sakai hurt Tybura really quickly. We saw Shamil Abdurakhimov hurt Tybura in, I believe that was the second round. It always begs the question, does he have a questionable chin? Because Greg Hardy definitely has the power to expose that if that is a factor, right? I think if Hardy wins, it's going to happen in the first round. Although Hardy, for the most part, he kind of has that cardio. So keep that in mind. It's not like he's going to gas out after the first 90 seconds. But I think his main shot of winning the fight.
Repeat that. You repeat that. You had a bad connection there, like for the last, something happened. So repeat what you said.
Yeah. Okay. I'm not sure what happened there, but nonetheless, I said that I think that Tybura's chin could be questionable here. We saw what Augusto Sakai did to him. We saw what Shamil Abdurakhimov did to him as well. And we know that Greg Hardy can possibly expose that. And what I mentioned here was that I think Greg Hardy, although he doesn't really have a problem with cardio per se, I think his only real shot of winning this fight is in the first round, is maybe in that first half of the first round. I just don't see that happening. I think Tybura is going to have maybe a little bit too much movement for him, some pretty solid striking defense as well. The way that I see this fight going is I see Tybura kind of winning a somewhat boring fight, but I do see Tybura winning here on points.
Okay. Yeah, this is a really tough fight. The favorite, I think,
Greg Hardy. Greg Hardy's a slight favorite there.
Yeah, so he definitely has the power. We know that. But who's he fought? He beat Maurice Green, Jorgen De Castro, two guys that wanted nothing to do with the grappling. He got schooled by Volkov. Like, so he hasn't really beaten anybody that I consider a legit fighter now. And Marcin Tybura, you're getting a legit. Like if this is gonna tell us a lot about Greg Hardy, because now he's fighting a fighter 20-6, 50% takedown accuracy. So this guy has a 50% takedown accuracy, and he gets takedowns. He gets takedowns against a lot of these fighters. Let's run them through. So he got 3 takedowns against Maxim Grisham, 1 takedown against Ben Rothwell. He got 1 takedown against Fabricio Werdum, 1 takedown against Derek Lewis, 1 takedown against Luis Henrique. So he gets the takedown almost in every fight. So I think I'm with you. I think this is a tough pick. I can get it. I can see where I can see how Hardy wins this fight, like keeping the standing and letting some power out. But Tybura hung with Derek Lewis until the end, right? So I like Tybura. I think he's tough enough to take some of those shots. And then we know Hardy has asthma, so we know that his cardio is not going to be the best in the second, third round. If Tybura gets us on the ground, and I think Tybura is competent on the feet, but if he gets us on the ground, the advantage is ridiculous that I don't think Greg Hardy will be able to get back up. So I think this is a fight that Tybura could win. I'm going to take Tybura. I'm going to go with the underdog. I'm going to echo Harris here and take Tybura to win a decision, to win a split decision.
And on top of that, Tybura has the IQ to know I can take this guy down. I can stay on top of him. I can win round 2 by doing that. And, kind of IQ his way to a round or 2 and kind of get that split or get that unanimous 29-28 to your point. But yeah, I mean, you know what? Close fight, though. Close fight. That's something to be very aware of.
Let's not forget, Tybura fought 26 times and Greg Hardy fought 9 times, right? So let's not forget that's huge, right? There's a lot of experience on the Tybura side, so I'm gonna ride with that. Let's go.
Agreed. Fight number 2 then of the main card, we have Gillian Robertson versus Taila Santos. This is going to be an interesting one because when you think about this fighter, when you look at this fight, you might be impressed with Taila Santos in her game overall. I mean, she throws a lot into her shots. I think she has some good stand-up. We've seen, boxing, kickboxing, Muay Thai. You kind of see it all from her on the feet. Throws some really powerful knees to the body, and she loves that body kick as well. Very strong tie clinch from what I've seen from her. And I mean, I saw her with, showcase some takedown ability as well. I mean, we saw what she did against Molly McCann. Not only did she show good takedowns in that fight, but she actually showed some pretty decent takedown defense in that fight. Molly McCann just couldn't get her down. I don't see cardio being a huge issue in terms of her completely gassing, but she definitely slows down her pace in the later stages of the fight. So that's something that we're going to be very conscious of. And we know what we're getting at a Gillian Robertson. I mean, she's a ground specialist, right? She loves that single leg approach to her takedowns, very active on top. She likes to improve position, kind of mixing some shots on top, improve position, sub attempt or ground and pound, things like that. She has a very improved stand-up, I think. She's not amazing on the feet, but it is improved. She likes to move around the ring a lot. Her cardio is definitely there. With this fight, ultimately, I think that this fight, one key question that we're going to ask here is, can Gillian Robertson take down Taila Santos? I think if that answer is yes, I think Gillian Robertson's going to have not an easy time, but a pretty clear path to winning 2 rounds of this fight. I think if Gillian Robertson gets her takedowns stuffed, then she might have a long night. So, it's going to be interesting to kind of see how these styles clash. But when I think about Taila Santos and I think about her being exposed to somebody that has more of a ground approach, I want everyone to watch her fight versus Mara Borella, because we saw what Mara Borella was able to do to her. She kept it close. She kept it dirty. She clinched a lot, took her down, controlled on top, tired her out, different things like that, right? I don't think Gillian Robertson's stand-up is as good as Mara Barella's, but I think that blueprint and that path to victory is very much there. And I personally think that Gillian Robertson will be successful in that approach. So I am going to go with Gillian Robertson here, despite probably thinking that Taila Santos is the better fighter. I think from a scoring perspective, I like Robertson's chances here to win 2 of these rounds via top control.
Okay, this is a tough fight. Gillian Robertson, we know her ground game is not something to be played with. Um, she gets 50% of her takedowns. Taila Santos defends 83% of the takedowns. I think Taila Santos is. I give Gillian Robertson the jiu-jitsu advantage. Believe it or not, I think Taila Santos, with her strength, her physical strength, is going to be the better wrestler. I think Santos is the better striker. I think this is a good play for Taila Santos. Who's the favorite?
It's more or less a pick 'em, but we have Gillian Robertson as the slight favorite on this.
Okay. Yeah, I like Taila Santos. I actually think she's the better wrestler, and I think the strength is going to be a big indicator in this fight. I think Santos is much stronger than Gillian Robertson, and I think Santos can do a lot of damage striking. I think she's the far better striker. I think she can do a lot of damage in the clinch. As far as the takedowns go, I know Gillian can definitely get a takedown. If she does, I think Gillian can rattle the round, even get a submission. But I like Taila. I like her all-around game here. I like her wrestling. I like her stand-up. She's a fighter I'm really looking at. I like Gillian as well, but I think I'm pretty confident. I actually like Taila to win this fight, and I'm pretty confident on that pick.
That's interesting. Yeah, I mean, I can see that playing a factor. I definitely see her size playing a factor, and I mean, like I said, I do think she is the better fighter. That's absolutely certain. That she is the better complete fighter. But yeah, it's gonna be real interesting to see how that fight plays out, because again, if we see Santos stuff that first takedown, then I think the fight's gonna go exactly the way you envision it, right? So it's gonna be interesting to see what happens with that. I mean, as a pick'em would suggest, we are kind of split down the middle on this one in terms of who we're going with. So again, listeners, just beware of who you're picking on this one with either fighter. Both of them sort of have a path to victory, and we both kind of given you reasons to lean towards either fighter. So let's move on then to fight number 3 of our main card. This one's going to be a pretty good one here. We have Marlon Moraes versus Rob Font in the bantamweight division. When we think about, or you know what, tell me what you think about this one. I don't want to jump in here. Let's hear what you have to say about this one.
All right, so we got a really competitive scrap here. I like Marlon Moraes, really good kicks, really good striking. In this fight, I believe he has the wrestling advantage as well. But yeah, his game, I love his kicks, his ninja style. Concerns I have with Moraes is he does fade after the first couple of rounds. So after the first round, second round, he's going to fade, right? So that's a big concern I have. So I definitely agree that I definitely believe he has the grappling advantage here, but I don't think this is going to be a grappling fight. I think this is going to be more of a stand-up fight. Rob Font, dangerous fighter, really good foot movement, really good boxing. I actually give Rob Font the boxing advantage here. I give Moraes the kicks. I like Rob Font. I like Rob Font to pull out. I believe he might be the underdog. I like Rob Font to pull off the upset here. I think he's gonna get to him. I think that the longer the fight goes, favors Rob Font. Moraes slows down so much. The Aldo fight was pretty close. Could have went either way. But I think Rob Font, I think his boxing is going to be a bit too much. His footwork is going to be a bit too much for Moraes as the fight goes on. And I think he's going to catch him. Moraes, a good fighter, one of my favorite fighters a couple of years ago. But he has a bit of a issue with his heart. So that's why I'm gonna take Rob Font to pull off the upset here. I like him here.
Yeah, this is another one of those really tough matchups where I think this entire card is tough. First of all, I think it's very important to point that out. A lot of very close fights on here, and a lot of fights where you can kind of make a case for both fighters. I'm actually going to make a case for Marlon Moraes, and the reason why I would make a case for him is because I feel like he has the better movement in the stand up. I feel like he's going to maybe circle the ring better. I feel Rob Font, for as good as his movement is, he is a little bit too flat footed for my liking. I do find him at times throwing one shot at a time, whereas Marlon Moraes is going to kind of come in, like you mentioned, with that not necessarily ninja style, but style where he's throwing different strikes from different angles. And I see sort of an issue with Font landing cleanly or landing cleanly enough times to really make a difference in this fight. I'm not gonna say that Moraes is gonna look as fresh in round three as he does in round one, but I think that he's gonna be able to carry it enough where he does win round one and round two, and then we maybe find ourselves with Rob Font winning round three. And the reason why I say that is because I don't think Rob Font just pushes that pace in general that will particularly test Moraes's cardio. So I can see this being actually a somewhat similar fight to the Jose Aldo fight. And I'm not comparing Rob Font to Jose Aldo, but I'm comparing the style of fight where it stayed on the feet. The pace was never really electrifying at any point in time. And we saw a relatively close matchup that in some ways could have went either way. I think I actually bet on Jose Aldo in that fight, if I'm not mistaken. So I think it's going to be a very similar fight to that. But I think that similar to that Jose Aldo fight, I think Marlon Moraes will barely squeak this one out. I wouldn't be surprised if it's a split decision at that point.
Okay.
Definitely a close one. And again, I mean, it's going to be a theme on this card in general. Just really close fights. Beware, be cautious, and sort of take in the words that we're saying when it comes to picking the fighter that you believe is going to win this particular match. But let's move on. Let's move on to the next fight on our main card. We have Michael Pereira versus Khaos Williams. I am not a fan of this fight whatsoever. I do think Khaos Williams probably wins via KO, but I will say Michael Pereira, or Michel Pereira, I should say, is probably the better fighter. We know he's a striker. We know he has pretty complete MMA stand-up, some pretty decent movement, good fast kicks. We saw, what he was able to do to Diego Sanchez. We saw, I forgot his last fight, but looked pretty good in that fight as well. Some pretty good timing as a counter puncher, more of a kickboxing style. What I really don't like about Pereira, of course, he gets very flashy at times. I mean, we're talking jumping knees, we're talking kicks off the fence, Anthony Pettis style. We're talking keeping his hands down. We're talking keeping his hands even behind his back. Some people like that. Some people don't. I don't like that in terms of really betting on any fighter that chooses to do that. And one thing that's very important to know with him is that he's very big for the division. So, but he's facing a pretty big opponent in Khaos Williams. And we know Khaos Williams is just going to have that scary power. Outside of that, like I said, Pereira probably has the better stand-up, but I can't trust Pereira's IQ. I feel like he's going to engage. And Khaos Williams, anyone that he touch, he hurts. And I wouldn't be surprised if Khaos Williams knocks him out.
That's fair. That's fair. That's a fair assessment. This is a tough fight because we didn't really see much of Khaos Williams versus top competition, right? So the first two times he fought in the UFC, both fights are 30 seconds or less. So it's really a tough thing to gauge where Khaos is really at. But I did what I could do with the footage I got, and I like Michel Pereira. I think he's the far better fighter here.
Agreed.
Yeah, Khaos. Yeah, he looked good in his last two fights, and he could definitely knock out Michel. Michel though is a bit more durable. He's pretty durable. I think he's only been stopped once in almost like 30 fights or however many fights he's had. So he's a very durable fighter, and with his high risk fighting style, he's fought 35 times. With his high risk style, you'd figure this guy would be knocked out a couple times, right? So he definitely can take his shots. And I think that in this fight, if Khaos cannot knock him out in that first couple of minutes, I think Pereira's just gonna move around the ring, leg kicks, high kicks, and I think he's gonna be a bit too quick as far as the striking goes. And I think he's just gonna pile on the points. I think Khaos is tough as well. I don't think he'll knock him out, but I think he's gonna win a very, very clear decision. But yeah, this is a tough fight, can go either way. But I'm gonna go with Michel Pereira surviving that first couple of minutes, and then putting Khaos in a real fight for once, right? So I'm gonna take Pereira to win a decision here.
Yeah, and even just to add on to that point for the listeners, I can very much see the fight going in that way as well. And what I'm rolling the dice on is I'm rolling the dice on in that first round, that knockout happening. Otherwise, I think if this gets dragged out more than, say, 3 minutes, Khaos is going to be in some waters that he hasn't really been in. I mean, Pereira's a pro in the fullest sense, 35 fights to your point. Pereira is the better fighter. Keep that in mind. He is the better fighter. It's just a question of, does Khaos Williams get that knockout in the first round or not? In my opinion, at least. So again, I'm choosing that answer being yes. You're choosing that answer being no. And as a result, we have another split decision here. But hey, it happens, right? Let's move on to our co-main event. It's going to be a real good one. José Aldo versus Marlon Vera. What do you think about this one?
Yeah, this is a really good fight. Marlon Vera, we know, got that lucky win versus
Sugar Sean O'Malley,
everyone's favorite fighter, right? So, but he got the win, 18-6. Good kicking game, good kicks. He has a big heart. No quitting this guy. He lost a close decision to Yadong Song. Before that, he's been on quite a run, right? So it looks like it's his time, right? But when you look at José Aldo, he still has it. He's looked good in the Peter Yan fight. He looked good in the Marlon Moraes fight. Some people thought he won the Moraes fight, and the Peter Yan fight. Some people think he was winning the fight until Peter Yan turned it up, right? So I think there's levels, man, and as good as Marlon Vera is, as lucky as that guy is, I like his style. But I think in a 3-round fight, I think José Aldo is gonna be able to get 2 rounds out of 3. And I'm gonna go with José Aldo I don't know if he's the underdog, but I'm gonna go with José Aldo here to pull this one off, because I think he has enough. Really, let's look at Marlon Vera's fights. He beat Sean O'Malley, where Sean was winning, but then he got injured. He lost to Yadong Song. I thought Yadong won, but some people thought Marlon won. He beat Andre Ewell. Noel Hernandez, Frankie Saenz, Guido. These guys are all like Frankie Saenz, Guido Canita, Noel Hernandez. Like, come on, man. I'm going to go with José Aldo here. I think he still has enough to put this guy away. I think there's levels, man. And I think, Jose lost to Peter, Marlon Moraes, Volkanovski. Okay, he beat Moicano, Jeremy Stevens. I think he can beat Marlon Vera. So I'm going to go with José Aldo here.
Yeah, I'm gonna definitely echo that message. If we're talking about who do we think is the better fighter, who do we think is the higher level fighter, I think that answer has to be José Aldo. I think José Aldo very much still has it. And I mean, let's not forget, he's technically not that old in terms of just his actual age, despite his UFC experience or despite his MMA experience in general. But the only thing to keep in mind with Aldo, something that I've noticed is that, I mean, he's always in a close one, right? He's always in a fight where you either got to argue the case that he potentially won, or it's a split decision, and again, we saw what happens. He faces the highest level of competition. He has 3 losses in a row. I think, to your point, although there is levels to this, Marlon Vera, in my opinion, is not on the level of José Aldo. But I think that's just one thing to keep in mind, especially with Marlon Vera's heart and his ability to very much engage in a stand-up fight with José Aldo, the same way we saw Marlon Moraes do it. it could end up being like that. Again, I spoke to that Marlon Moraes versus Jose Aldo point earlier in this video. I think that's also a blueprint, not necessarily about how to beat Aldo, but a blueprint on if the fight visually looks that way. To your point, it could be Marlon Vera's time, and the UFC could end up, leaning in the favor of Vera for that one. But I don't see that happening. I think that's a caution to have, but I do think you have to trust the pick of who the better fighter is. And personally, I think that is Jose Aldo. So I'm also going to echo that sentiment and choose Jose Aldo on this one. Again, it is a close fight, but Jose Aldo is going to be both of our picks for that. Moving on then from the co-main event, let's move on to our main event. We have Stephen Thompson versus Geoff Neal. This one is very tough. I'll be honest with you. I probably don't have a pick until the end of this analysis. But when we think about Geoff Neal, I mean, he's a southpaw, really high-level boxer, really high-level kickboxer as well. Just very confident in his ability on the feet in general. I like his movement around the ring. I like the way he switches it up. I like the way he mixes it up between his punches and his kicks. And, I mean, speed. We know speed is a factor with Geoff Neal. He has that speed behind his punches. You know, he throws a lot of feints. He throws a lot of fakes. Definitely keeps his opponents guessing. And, I mean, Geoff Neal, in a lot of ways, is kind of, I'm not going to say known for his power, but known to have power. But it's not a sort of one-shot kill type of power. It's more of a super accurate, don't see it coming because it's coming so fast type of power. And I think that's something to really keep in mind versus Stephen Thompson, because one thing we know about Stephen Thompson, yes, he has that karate stance. Yes, he uses a lot of calf kicks specifically. Yes, he fights at range with some real good movement. Oftentimes he's a hard target to hit. But of course, in that karate side stance that he has, his hands stay down. And while he uses that as a weapon, he backs up pretty quickly. He'll counter punch his opponents pretty quickly as well. We have seen his opponents sort of catch him as he's implementing that style with either their second or their third punch. I'm very curious in this fight, is Geoff Neal going to throw those punches in combinations? Because I think if this turns into one shot for one shot, I think Stephen Thompson is going to win that fencing match there. But I think if Geoff Neal kind of puts the pressure on him and, you know, throws punches in combinations or punches and kicks in combinations, then I can possibly see Geoff Neal winning this fight. But let me know what your analysis is. I don't have a winner yet, so let me hear what you have to say, and then let's see if I can come to a final decision here.
Yeah, this is tough because when you look at Wonder Boy Thompson, he rarely loses striking matches. Like, he rarely loses those fights. Whenever he's fighting strikers, I thought he beat Darren until he got the loss. He was beating Anthony Pettis until he got knocked out. Until he got knocked out. And Tyron Woodley, we know what happened there, right? So he lost one and he had a draw. But he beat Masvidal, Rory McDonald. When it came to striking, these guys just couldn't keep up with him, right? So the concern I have with this fight, Wonder Boy being 37, I think Geoff Neal's one of the couple guys in the UFC that can actually hang with him in a kickboxing or striking fight. Now, even though I still think Wonder Boy is technically the better striker, I think Geoff Neal has, and plus he has the grappling. If he needs to take this down, he took Nico Price down twice. If he needs to go to the ground, if he really wants to win this fight, he knows that Wonder Boy has no resting period. So I'm going with Geoff Neal. I actually think Geoff Neal, the power, he's pretty active striker. He has good kicks, good reflexes, good timing. I give Wonder Boy the kicks and then the striking in general, the footwork, but I actually give Geoff Neal the boxing aspect. And I think that if Geoff Neal can back him up against the cage, he'll get a lot of success there, getting some body shots going, even some leg kicks. I think that his shots are going to be more powerful than Wonder Boy's. And I think, I like Geoff Neal here. I can even see him winning by knockout, because this is going to be a stand-up brawl. So I'm gonna take Geoff Neal, and I could even see him winning by knockout, basically like 5'11", 30 years old, 37. Yeah, I like the age there. I'm gonna go Geoff Neal.
Yeah, you know what? As I'm sort of rounding up my pick here, I'm going to agree with that. I'm definitely going to agree with that, and for the reasons that you mentioned, you know, Neal can win this fight if he closes the distance, if he cuts off Wonder Boy, and we've seen Stephen Thompson allow that to happen, despite how good his movement is. He can't keep it up for 15 minutes, especially at age 37. You have to ask yourself, when is that going to play a factor versus somebody who is technically in their athletic prime at 30 years old? I think, this is that sort of one opportunity that Geoff Neal has to kind of propel him to a level that he hasn't yet been at in the UFC, a level that he's been talked about being in the UFC for quite some time. And I think Wonder Boy is kind of that perfect stepping stone to make that happen. I think, again, Thompson will have moments where he's winning a point match. He's using that lengthy kick. He's backing up effectively. He's moving around the ring effectively. He's counterpunching effectively. But I mean, we know Geoff Neal. We know how high level both of these people are as stand-up artists. And I think that Neal is going to be able to figure that out as the time goes on. Just close that cage off, not allow that movement. Wonder Boy's movement's going to slow down a bit. And then Neal is going to start to win the points in those situations. And like you said, possibly even knock him out. I wouldn't be surprised at that either. But yeah, a very, very, very tough match, very close match. But I am going to side with Geoff Neal as well. So that said, we've gone through all of the fights at this point. Let's take a look at what's going on in Vegas. What overall picks do we like? What overall fights do we like? What parlays do we like? What underdogs do we like? Let's start with maybe our underdog pick of the ticket.
Underdog pick. You want me to go first?
Yeah, I'm looking to. I'm looking to.
All right, let me give you my. Let me go check this out. Okay, one sec.
As you're taking a look there, I'm stuck on Pani Kianzad, man. I'm stuck on Pani Kianzad. I think that's my underdog of the card. I actually feel in my gut, I feel pretty decent. I feel pretty confident in this one, but I can't call it a
Yeah,
golden pick, of course. But I do feel pretty confident in Pani Kianzad.
yeah, underdogs. I'll look at. I like Pani as well. Pani Kianzad. I also like Marcin Tybura. Um, yeah, those are my two underdogs: Marcin Tybura and Pani Kianzad.
Agreed. Agreed. Yeah, I like both of those as underdog picks. Let's give the listeners our two golden picks in that case. I think one of them we can say is Carl Robertson.
Yeah, I don't know. This is a tough card for me. My
It is.
golden pick. This is a. Even if you look at the odds, these odds are pretty close each fight, right? Minus a couple fights. But if I'm gonna take two picks, my golden picks. Again, I don't think this is a lock card, but I like Taila Santos, and I'm gonna take Carl Roberson. Or let me see here. Yeah, I like Taila Santos, Carl Roberson. Jose Aldo, I'm leaning, but I'm not gonna throw that in yet. But I'm gonna take Carl Roberson and Taila Santos. Those are my golden picks.
I think a golden pick for me. I know you like him as a live dog, but I don't see Jimmy Pickett winning this fight. I think Tafon is gonna get the job done there. And again, if you were to parlay that with Carl Roberson, that wouldn't be too bad. $100 would get you an $82 profit there. But again, this is a very tough card. This is a very tough card. I don't think you can confidently say any one fighter is going to win for sure. But those would be the two that I would go with. Is there anything you're thinking about from a parlay perspective before we head out of here?
Yeah, Talia Santos and Carl Robertson. That's that parlay is gonna hit. I like that parlay.
Let's take a look at that one. So Carl Robertson and Talia Santos. put $100 on that, it will of course get you $167 profit there. If I'm just looking at this, yeah, this is a tough one. This is a tough one. I kind of like Arroyo. I kind of like Robertson. I like Tafon. Technically, I like Pettis, but I don't know how I feel about betting that. Technically, I like Aldo, but I don't know how I feel about betting that. The exact same script for Moraes. Actually, you know what? I'm going to avoid that Moraes one. I'm going to avoid that right away. And yeah, I mean, you know what? Like, those are probably 5 picks I can feel okay about, but I'm definitely not rushing to make this parlay. But it would be Arroyo, Robertson, Tafon Chikui, Anthony Pettis, Jose Aldo. There's no real fights on here that you want to throw the book at. And I think that's going to be the key message here is that, really be cautious in how you're betting on this card overall. But there's a lot of fights. 13 fights for our last UFC event of the year of 2020. This is going to be good, man. This is going to be good.
All right, let's do it.
Let's do it. Let's do it. Boxing MMA picks. We are out. Hopefully you guys make some money. Let us know in the comments below who are your parlays, who are your confident picks, who are your underdog picks. Let us know. Share this video, of course, with your family, with your friends, with anyone that you know that likes to talk about sports betting specifically. We feel like we are providing some pretty good insight. Hit that subscribe button, share the video. You know what to do from there, man. Otherwise, we got Zan, we got Harris, Boxing MMA picks, UFC Fight Night, Thompson versus Neal. We are out.
Peace.